Cobra Kai never dies.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have a big surprise for you today. With me is an actor that you've probably seen in movies like Summer of 8, TV shows like Chicago Med, NCIS Los Angeles, and also Hit the Road. But I have a feeling you know him best for playing the young Terry Silver in the Cobra Kai series. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to present Nick Marini. Nick, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Been looking forward to this.
Oh, and everyone here, my goodness, has been looking forward to this. You obviously play Terry Silver, a character that is near and dear to all of our hearts. And I can't wait to talk to you about that experience of playing him. And what would you say, just off the top, what has it been like playing Terry Silver, just kind of overall?
It's been such an incredible experience. I mean, as an actor, this is my first real experience with a fan base that is this dedicated to the project. And so it's such an honor and privilege to get to play a character that so many people have such fond feelings for. And just to get to sort of provide that background to a beloved character has been honestly so fun.
Well, I'm looking forward to talking all about Terry Silver in a little bit, but before I do that, I want to get to know you as a person and your journey as an actor. When did you first get interested in acting?
So acting, and my parents are both theater people. So my mother is a theater actress and my father directed a lot of theater on the East Coast. So I sort of grew up in theaters on the East Coast, Philadelphia, New York, all over. And so I always call it like the family corner store. It wasn't something, I just think I took it for granted. I didn't realize how special it was just because it was all around me all the time. And so, one of my earlier memories is my dad at the regional theater that he founded directing Treasure Island. And my mom was reading me the book. I was like 4 probably. And she'd be reading me the book, and then I'd look up and there were all the pirates walking around, And so it was a really magical way to grow up. But I actually sort of I had no interest initially. I was a little more academic. My older brother's mom worked at the United Nations. And so growing up, sort of initially wanted to be a diplomat. And it wasn't until about 10th grade in high school that I went to DC and sort of shadowed someone at a think tank who would be sort of like a job you'd take on your way to becoming a diplomat. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, office jobs and me are not going to get along. And it was at that point that I realized, I sort of looked in my own backyard and realized that storytelling was just inhabited every part of me. And I just sort of had missed the forest for the trees. So it was around then that I really started to pursue it in a real way.
So you went to college, you studied storytelling and performance in college.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate. I'm from Philadelphia primarily, and the mayor sponsors a number of students from Philadelphia to attend UPenn. So I was very fortunate to get a full ride to UPenn, where I studied film theory, basically. Cinema studies is what we called it. So all my friends were like doing engineering problem sets, and I was watching The Matrix and writing essays about film and the history of film. And so I really got to study the whole medium in a way that I really appreciated. And that, I think because I had come from a background of watching theater be done, and my mom did film and television as well, but mostly theater. So I knew that part of the industry better. So to sort of study it from a more academic viewpoint, I think let me sort of appreciate the broader industry, which I appreciated a lot.
Absolutely. And so by studying really the entire industry from an academic perspective, after that, you still had this affection, or you were drawn towards acting. So what was it about acting?
To me, it is it is just a type of storytelling that it's the most visceral. It's the I am taking part in the story, and I always sort of say that, like, if an astronaut gets to explore space, I think an actor gets to explore the human condition. And so I've always been someone who was, I think amongst my friends, I was certainly one of the more emotional people. Not that I haven't, grown out of sort of letting my emotions run my life, but that I've always been very interested in how they do affect the moment and other people and situations that bring out the best and worst in people, and navigating how you react to those sorts of things. And I think I've recently I'll be directing my first short film in about 2 weeks. So I'm branching into the other aspects of storytelling in the film and television industry. But acting, it's just, to me, it's the most fun. It's just you're playing pretend, and you're trying to live as truthfully as you can in imaginary circumstances, and do things that you would never otherwise get to do. So I love it.
And just so we know, what is the name of your short film, if it has one, that we can kind of look for
it? It'll be called Scrambled. It's a very short, sort of a micro short, they call them. I sort of think of it as a kind of a haiku of a short film. But it's just it's a thing that's been in my head and for a long time, and I'm sort of gonna get it out and then start to set my eyes on some larger projects.
That's fantastic. That's incredible. And so, you've gotten to this point, and then when you made that decision, to pursue this professionally, to make the big move, you mentioned that your parents were in theater, in show business. And when you told them that you wanted to do this professionally,
yeah, they were really psyched when they thought I was going to be a diplomat, but they know what it is to have that passion. I come from a family of artists. My uncle is a saxophonist for the Blues Brothers band and plays with James Taylor and all these people. And his wife always jokes that there's not a Marini with an honest job, because we're all artists. And I think for me, part of my sort of academic journey it is something that always interests me, and I love reading and I love learning, but ultimately I think it was mostly just that was my rebellion, it was like being super academic. But ultimately I couldn't ignore that I was an artist raised by artists. And I was, it's very fortunate when you have, I don't know that they were necessarily able to open too many doors for me, but they knew which doors to knock at. They knew how to guide me. And obviously very fortunate to have that, and to just get to learn more than I could possibly fathom as a kid. I always think there's an interesting story that I'll share, that when I was maybe 15 or 16, I auditioned for a movie that Greta Gerwig was doing, and this was sort of before she really exploded. And she came to Philadelphia and auditioned me, and I went to New York for a callback. And that weekend, I also had an audition for like an NYU thesis film. And I remember auditioning with Greta, and she was reading opposite, and she's just one of the most incredible talents of recent memory. And I remember being like, walking out of that audition, be like, man, I'm like pretty good at this. And then I went to audition for this thesis film and was auditioning with another 15 or 16-year-old, and walked out and was like, I don't know if I'm that good at this. That didn't feel, and it was at that point I sort of realized, because I grew up around this, I know what it looks like when you're doing it right. And I can sort of keep pace with you if you're doing it right. but I didn't yet have the ability to sort of forge my own path. And that's when I started to really start taking classes and start really, when you grow up around it, you know things, but you haven't necessarily done them yourself. You've watched it a million times and you know what's good in you, but that was a real watershed moment for me of realizing that that there was a lot of work I had to do on my own to get to a level that this became a reasonable decision to have made.
Right. Wow. What an incredible experience. And
it was, and she was like doing a bunch of indie movies and I knew how talented she was, but this was years before she really started to make it on, in the major public eye. And so it's like, every time I see her succeed, I'm just like, awesome. It's awesome.
How cool. How amazing.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of succeeding, after you were studying on the East Coast, I read that you moved out to LA and you auditioned. In your first audition, you got a lead role in Summer of 8.
It was pretty awesome. I graduated from Penn and went to one of my best friend's beachside towns in Connecticut, jumped in the Atlantic Ocean, drove out to Los Angeles, jumped in the Pacific, figured I'd go end to end. And the movie Summer of 8 is about a group of high school friends on their last summer before they all go off to college. And it's a very sort of reminiscent film and deeply sort of relationship oriented. And I had just left all of my best friends on the East Coast, graduated college and driven out to Los Angeles. So I think I was very much in that frame of mind. And it was really, it was just sort of taking my reality and placing it in this character. And it was one of those, just very fortuitous auditions where I didn't have to prepare. I literally memorized the lines, talked to my best friend on the phone. They called my name. I hung up. I said, I'll see you later, Dave. And I hung up the phone and walked in and it was pretty special.
I don't know how many people have seen this yet. Definitely check it out. The thing that struck me was I couldn't believe that this was your first movie role. Everything was it was so smooth and confident, so natural. Just an incredible job.
Well, it's I think one of my favorite things about film and television is just how many artists have to be functioning at the top of their game to make something come together. And I just resonated so much with that script, and the rest of the cast was so incredible. It was also just so wonderful to work with 7 other young actors right when I moved to LA. I had a group of people I could sort of land with, and they've all gone on to do amazing things. And so it was I felt very privileged to have been amongst that group.
And then, from there you've done, I'm sure some people listening to this recognize you from Chicago Med, and you had this whole series of episodes where you played a sex traffic victim, and very different role. I mean, what was that like, I guess, from a character standpoint, but also NCIS Los Angeles, these are big procedural network shows. And, what was that experience like?
Well, it's so, it's very different. You're walking onto a set, and Cobra Kai is very like this in the sense that it's everyone there is just crushing their job. And so you walk on sort of new to this group of people and this work environment, and you have to they have set the bar really high, and you have to, it's such a amazing feeling to get to just look around, see what everyone is doing and go, all right, let's go, let's do it. And Chicago Med was, it was my first television role, and it was 4 episodes, and I got to the character was so, it was such a visceral character in so many ways. He's dealing with not only being a victim of sex trafficking, but being suicidal, being addicted to heroin. I need Dr. Reese. So there were technical aspects to it. I watched a lot of videos of heroin addicts on YouTube, and I did a lot of research into sex trafficking, and it films in Chicago, obviously. And at that time, I think there was only one, and obviously the sex trafficking is such a horrendous thing and happens in just substantially greater number to women than men. But it does happen to men as well. And I was sort of surprised to find out that at the time of when we were shooting, there was only one place in the entire Midwest that would guarantee a male victim of sex trafficking a bed. And that just, it makes sense in the grand scheme of things, and is not necessarily excusable, but was, just because the numbers are so staggeringly different. But it was sort of an eye-opening moment to realize that, like, oh, this character really has nowhere to go. He really has nowhere to go and no one to go to, and is totally on his own. I was very fortunate to work with some incredible people in that project. Rachel DePillo, who was also in Summer of 8, happened to be on the show, and we got to work together again, which was a blast. And it was that felt like, not that every job isn't, real acting, but that felt like I was doing. There was a lot of layers to that character, and I was very honored that they trusted me to bring Danny to life.
It sounds like an important part of the process is researching roles in the background and what these people are going through. Is that an extensive process? It
can really depend, partly depends on how much time you have. Sometimes you don't find out that you've booked something. I've had projects where I found out at 6 p.m. that I was going to leave for a month at 6 a.m. the next morning. And you're like, oh, okay, better start packing, better figure out, and then you have projects where you have a little bit of time before, and you get to sort of dive in a little bit more. But research, we're so spoiled today because we have YouTube. I can, if I need an accent, I can just find people from that area who are doing some YouTube video and watching it, or I can watch Karate Kid 3 a million times in a row. And someone was nice enough to do a supercut of Terry Silver in Karate Kid 3, so that I've got that video pinned on my browser, and I every time I know that I'm coming to work, I watch it over and over again to just sort of pick up whatever I can.
That's so interesting. So you probably at this point have seen Karate Kid 3 as much or more than all of the super fans of the movie.
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah, I've watched it so many times. It's such a wonderfully fun movie. Just the idea of this insane, billionaire taking a few weeks off work to torture a 15-year-old. It's
right.
It's so fun. He's sort of just the classic 80s over the top villain, and it just is delicious.
Okay, so I have to ask you this, since we're talking about Terry Silver and researching the role of Terry Silver, how did this come about where you got this role, which is Twig to the audience? This was in season 3 of Cobra Kai, and it was kind of a fake out. We didn't realize that this character is Terry Silver.
Well, I don't even, if I remember correctly, I don't even think I knew I was auditioning for him initially. I think they auditioned everyone, to my knowledge, if I'm remembering correctly, they auditioned everyone with the young Kreese stuff. And then they just were letting that sort of find who they liked, and then sort of depending on where they thought people would fit. And this is very funny, but when I auditioned for young Silver, when I found out I got it, I think the callback, I knew it was young Terry Silver, but his nickname, it was not Twig, it was Mayo. And I was like, well, I'm a pretty pasty dude. I think I could book Mayo. And then I got it, and they went, we're going to change it to twig. And I was like, wow, guys, like, wow. I thought mayo wasn't a layup enough. You had to throw twig in there. Okay. Yeah, it is. Jim Moore, I guess. But it was, I was so excited. And, my older brother is like a huge fan of the Karate Kid universe. And so I just knew that me getting to be a part of it was going to be, I was going to be able to share that with him. And it was just, and get to share it with just everyone who loves this wonderful, wonderful universe. So it was pretty awesome.
Oh, absolutely. And so you were aware of Karate Kid 3. You had seen it before. You knew who Terry Silver was?
I hadn't seen Karate Kid 3, I don't think. I think I had seen 2, maybe once. I certainly had seen the first one. It was the kind of movie that my older brother like would have showed me. So once I found out who I was auditioning for, then of course, you go right on and you find can I stream this somewhere? Do I have to buy it on iTunes or Amazon or whatever? And at that time it was still YouTube Red, I think, with the first season that I was on. And so I watched a little bit of Cobra Kai as well. And the first episode of Cobra Kai just blew me away. And I was like, wow, this would be pretty special to get to work on.
Wow, very cool. Okay, so you're doing this research. You're watching Terry Silver videos. So I have to ask you, what you mentioned a little bit about how the characters, kind of crazy, over the top, doing things that are, kind of exaggerated. But what did this character seem like to you as far as doing the research? And obviously you're playing a character who's very different in those scenes than he was in Karate Kid 3.
Yes.
And trying to find that common thread. Like, what was that like?
Well, I remember, whenever if someone says Terry Silver, the image that always comes into my mind is him in a towel in the sauna going, I like that. I'm going to use that. It's just like so insane and wonderful and fun. And, but I remember, when I got it, I said, I'm assuming we don't want me there. I'm assuming we want to build, as I affectionately call him, Cocaine Terry. We want to build to that. And what was written, for him initially, I think sort of helped me get there. And I often think about, he has such a trickery is really his primary weapon. He's an incredible martial artist. He's dangerous, but the real true danger of him is that you might not ever see him coming until it's too late. And he has to know the power of being overlooked. And he has to have people that overshadow him so he can be in the shadows. And ultimately he does take control. And but he's patient. He's a very patient man. Even in times where you see him sort of act reactively, he's got a plan. He's always got a plan. And I liked getting to play him in a way that was maybe unexpected. Because he also, we see how much admiration he has for Kreese. We see so he has to, and I remember when we were shooting those first scenes in Vietnam, I have that whole monologue with him, and
I owe you, man. You saved my ass. Anything you need, I'm there for you.
And I remember just talking with them and saying, Kreese doesn't necessarily do anything for me that he didn't do for everyone else in this cage. And we were getting ready to do the scene where the guard comes in, and so sort of like while we were in the moment, we realized that the guard should choose me, not Kreese. And then Kreese can step in. And now I owe him more than anyone else. And now that life bond is solidified. And one of the things I've been, on a show like Cobra Kai, where you've got writers of the quality that they are, and you've got just everyone there because they know exactly what they want, and because they know, and because they're so talented and know how to get it, you actually have the time to sometimes play, because you're not, there's no wasted, you're not losing a take because someone messed up. And so, when we work on Cobra Kai, Barrett and I feel like we walk in, it's like boom, 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 we did it. And so sometimes because they're so good at what they're doing, in the moment we can sort of go like, do we have a moment and we can just try something? And then it feels really awesome to get to like be peers with those people for that time, and to work together because we all care so much about it. And even like simple things, like I think there's that flashback where we're looking at the magazine, and I said to one of the props guys, I was like, do we have multiple of these? Like, if I throw it, is this the only one? And if I mess it up, I've screwed everyone up. He's like, no, we got a couple. And I was like, cool. So I was like, what is Terry Silver? Like, Terry Silver's not going to recycle this magazine. Like if Kreese isn't interested in the Saikai Taikai, well, okay, I'm going to toss it in this pristine, beautiful place. Because what do I go on to do? Dump toxic waste all over the world, right? So like, right. I certainly don't care about the environment. And I remember I threw it, and then I think it was the camera, one of the camera guys was like, oh, hold on. Could you throw it here? Could you land it here? And then that will be so like he was playing off my impulse, and it just, that to me is like, that is how great things get made, is everyone works together, and the camera guy has an idea because you had an intuition, and suddenly that's the end of the scene, is the zoom in on that on the ground, and we cut to the next scene, and it's like that took everyone, that took the director, seeing other people's visions and making it even better. It just takes everyone working together, and it's, to be able to do that, Terry Silver is a big role, but we are a very small part of a huge machine, and to just be trusted in that way, and to be allowed to work, has just been such a gift.
It's amazing to kind of hear how collaborative everyone is, and how organic everything, because we can tell, watching the series, we love it. And I think that shines through to the audience, just that passion, creativity, and feeding off of each other. And of course, you mentioned working with Barrett Carnahan as young Kreese, and you guys are kind of in interesting positions because you're playing the younger versions of these iconic movie characters. And did you ever have discussions about that? Like, what that was like, or how you're approaching it? I
mean, it's just, first off, Barrett is he's such a gentleman. He's such an incredible actor, and just generous person. And getting to share this experience with him has been just such a blast. It's one thing to get an awesome job, and then when you get to meet awesome people, and you both just jive, it just makes it that much better. And so, I feel like getting to work with Barrett and us getting along as well as we do has just only added to the whole thing. And, we have had many discussions about just, and they range from like the technical, like, how do we, build these characters, and we're knowing where they're going, and, and also to just the moments where we're just sitting on set and we go like, dude, this is so cool. Like, we're a part of Karate Kid. Like, oh my God. Like, we're part of one of the most legendary film franchises ever. And what an honor, and what a duty. And it's very funny because we never like meet anyone else on the show, because we're always just in our own little world. But every once in a while they'll come through, and everyone has been so kind. And I've gotten the chance to talk with Thomas, and he's been so generous with Terry as well. One of the things that really really stuck with me is we were talking, and I had called him because I had a scene coming up, and I wanted some of his input, and he so generously said, I'm not going to give you a line reading. I'm so glad we're talking because we're the same character, but you have to make this your own, and I can tell you, I can tell you what I think about Terry, but it was just to have him share Terry with me as openly as he has been really meaningful, and really fun. And I getting to chart Terry as he goes from sort of young military guy to wearing an ascot and starting to become who he will become, has been really cool. And the pandemic was perfectly timed. I got to grow up my own ponytail, which I never would have done. So yeah, it's a special character because people really seem to resonate so much with it. And I see why. He's such a dangerous but fun, you never know quite what you're going to get with him.
Right. And you mentioned talking with Thomas Ian Griffith, who you guys both you have a hallowed place in all of our hearts because you're playing this character together. Did you, through your discussions with him, did you get is there one insight that maybe you got from Thomas Ian Griffith about Terry that struck you, that you kind of went, whoa, okay, that's different, that's interesting, that maybe you didn't expect or that you used?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think Thomas is such a thoughtful, he is really not like Terry at all. But then he enters this character, and it's such a powerful performance. And I think one of the things I really took from him was have fun, because it's fun to play a character like that, and it's fun to be sizing people up and to just be that, I think of all the Cobra Kais, Terry strikes me as the most snake-like. He really is you might not see him moving through the underbrush until he's just boom. Or he's calling your attention, Thomas is just, I've seen how seriously he takes it, and also how much joy he finds in it. And also just that he really has, I think, been pretty insistent that it also be mine, and we've talked and had incredible discussions, but it just, I felt very trusted by him, which meant a lot to me.
I guess, as we're looking at your character's progression, so far we've seen you in season 3, season 4, and season 5. You were Twig, obviously, in season 3. You had that experience in the POW camp. Kreese saved you. In season 4, we see you getting the Cobra Kai tattoo. Yeah. And you're talking with John Kreese, and your character's very conflicted, maybe, about the fact that he can't go and help John Kreese open the dojo. He needs to be with his father. He needs to get his inheritance. And it's this interesting conflict. And then in season 5, he seems way more like he's established. He's confident. Like this is much more towards
really different. Yeah.
Right. So if you're kind of to give us a Terry meter, like you say Cocaine Terry is, Karate Kid 3. Is Terry, do you feel like deep down the same person throughout all those years? Or do you feel like there are key moments where he changes? Or, you mentioned that he may not reveal all of himself right away.
Yeah, I think definitely he changes. I think, you mentioned his father, and that, the father to me is that is to me the root of all of Terry, which is when we first meet Terry, not, literally when we first meet Terry, he is frail and and weak, and he's still a Marine. He's still capable, but he is very much the beta to Kreese's alpha, and that is not who we meet in Karate Kid 3. And his father is clearly an incredibly successful businessman. Which means he's got to be cutthroat in his own way. He may not be physically imposing, but you better believe that he rules with as iron a fist as Kreese and Terry learned to throw, and so to me, I suspect that Terry's father is the first enemy he truly takes down.
Wow.
And that's sort of my headcanon. Because what we see in that tattoo scene is we see, and I think it gets mentioned in Vietnam as well, but we sort of see the control that his father has over him and his father's desire to shape him, but it's almost too late. I would wager that his dad didn't want him to join. He wanted him to, go to college and get a business degree and learn how to be a shark that way. And Terry, I think, becomes much more formidable because he's got Cobra Kai teaches him the mental fortitude and the physical fortitude and strength, but he's also got that business side, that cutthroat, stamp on the little guy when you can, and have no mercy is, I don't think Cobra Kai is his first experience with no mercy. And so part of his power as a character is the way in which he embraces that, goes from maybe being the victim of it to having it really define who he is. And then we also see, we see the part of him in the older character of Cobra Kai, where he has some remorse for that, but it's such a core part of him, he can't quite escape it ever. And so I think he's such a fascinating character, and we still don't know a lot about him. We still we don't know how he came to run Dynatox. We don't know how he we don't, so much is left up to our imagination, and so much is left up to the way in which he's portrayed in these different times. And so we can imagine the journey he's on. But yeah, I think it's also cool to me, Dynatox is clearly doing a bunch of illegal stuff. So to what extent does having your CEO also be an absolute badass, help when you're doing some questionable stuff on the side, So I just, I think I was joking with someone about I feel like there's a Karate Kid meets Succession arc that that could totally be explored with Terry, because he's in two cutthroat worlds, unlike sort of everyone else, and he thrives in both, which makes him incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, I think we would be totally on board with that, seeing that sort of succession angle to Terry Silver. And I'll ask you about that in just a minute. I also wanted to touch on your talking about all these qualities of Terry. He's a complicated guy. There's a lot going on. Fans, we know he's done some bad things, and we understand why people call him a villain. But, we've got, he's in trouble, but we feel like there's so many good qualities to Terry Silver that, the people just don't appreciate. And maybe from his own viewpoint, he's not all that wrong. And he has all of these qualities that we would want in a leader. Just from someone who's playing the part, do you feel like he is a total villain, or do you feel like he's someone who needs to be redeemed, or could be redeemed, or should be redeemed? How do you view him?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's a villain. I don't think he's a total villain in the sense that, it's this dichotomy, right? Like I think he is in many ways the epitome of privilege, but he's also always having to prove himself. Like you said, like he is an incredibly good businessman. He is a good leader. And yet, because someone saved his life, he always had to play second fiddle to them. And he is a man of honor. He does see what was done for him and honor it with Kreese. But he also starts to see where, well, when is it my turn? When if these people aren't going to step out of my way, I have to move them myself. I think for someone who, I try to spend a lot, when you go to a school like the University of Pennsylvania, you meet a lot of people who do come from a family like his, who do come from a wealth that the son of a working class actor and director is not my background. But suddenly I'm at school with people whose parents are the CEOs of major corporations. And when you were the child, and this is, there are many different experiences for all of these people, but I think one of the prices of success at the level that we're talking about Terry Silver and his father and corporate CEO success is that you don't have a lot of time for your kids. And that doesn't mean that everyone who is raised by a CEO doesn't have a great relationship with their parent, but it means that some of them don't. And that is the reason why. And so I think for Terry, that's where I think having to prove himself, because to the people that he wants to prove himself to, they don't have time for him. Then everyone else is seeing this spoiled, to their eyes, someone who's spoiled. So I think he's got a lot to prove to himself and to others, but especially to himself. And I love that he has his own variation of Cobra Kai, the Quicksilver, he's got his own view on these things. And I think that says a lot, where he's, Kreese took the Cobra Kai creed and methodology and like that. He is a fundamentalist of the Cobra Kai system. And Terry has his own edge to it. He's got his own, and I love, if a man can't see, can't stand, can't breathe, right? These are all things that unbalance you. These are all ways to make your opponent weaker and to undermine them and so he's a much more intellectual and that also means he spent a lot of time thinking, and what has he been thinking? What has he been planning? What has he been plotting? And why has he had to, he can't resort to the pure physical dominance that maybe Kreese can. And so I think that was why it was important to me as Twig to sort of showcase that, like, oh, he's going to beat you all right, but he's going to beat you from the side and the back. And, he rarely is going to take a direct assault. And it just makes it so fun to sort of navigate that and to find those moments where he's standing next to you, he's on your side, but is he? And he only really, I think, can trust his own side. And I love that moment in I think it was the last season where he says, I realize what my weakness is, or whatever that line is. And it's like, yeah, he loves Kreese. He does. But if you're in my way, you're in my way. And I never wanted it to be you in my way, but also, like, the moment I realize you're the thing holding me back, that's the thing I have to take care of. And it's ruthless and it's personal. And it I think is what makes him ultimately a great villain, because he's got reasons, and he's not, it's like he hasn't been treated perfectly by everyone. He's gone through some real stuff, but he doesn't give up. You know, I think that's what's so interesting to me too about Kreese, right? Like we see Kreese in his later years at a point where he has this warrior mentality, but he hasn't applied it to the rest of life in quite the same way that Terry has. And I think that's what makes Terry really dangerous, is that he's striking first in every aspect that he possibly can. And he's striking hard. He is showing no mercy. Can he be redeemed? I don't even know if he thinks he needs to be. He thought he needed to be for a little bit. But then I think he realizes that no, life is for the strong. And he's going to figure out how to be the strongest.
Wow. That's absolutely fascinating. And I think all of those things you just said really feeds into this yearning to see more Terry. Like I think especially from Terry fans and just general Cobra Kai, Karate Kid fans, I think we all would love to see more Terry Silver. And we were very lucky last year. We had Cobra Kai co-creator Hayden Schlossberg come on this channel, and Hayden teased an idea of a potential Dynatox TV series that might follow Terry's rise to Cocaine Terry, and we get to see all of this. And so I don't know. First, maybe like, do you know anything about this? Is this happening? But if you
know nothing about it, other than I see the incredible fan art that gets made, and I love it. That would obviously be a dream come true. It would be super cool. I feel like I have had so much fun, and I also feel like I've barely scratched the surface of what is possible with this character. But you know that there are so many. Would be the last person to hear if it was even happening, and you know they're the ones in control, and they're the ones who, even if it was happening, would be, you know, who knows what that project would require for itself. But yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, if the phone rings and it's anything to do with Cobra Kai, sign me up.
That's awesome. Okay, that's great. We've offered to campaign for this series. A lot of us feel like we need it. The world needs it. We have to know more about Terry, and so you would be completely open to being a part of that series.
I mean, I am thrilled that I've gotten to work as much as I have, but I am not turning down awesome offers anytime soon like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's fantastic. Hopefully something like that can happen someday. On the shorter term, we have season 6 of Cobra Kai to look forward to. I don't know if you're able to say anything, but is there a chance that we could see young Terry Silver once again before the series comes to an end in season 6?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly can't say anything. You know, I of course that is on my mind and on other people's minds. You know, whatever they have planned will be the correct decision. And you know, like I said, if my phone's ringing, I'm picking up.
Now, you've given us such a wonderful background to your life, your career, Terry Silver, the character, really amazing thoughts on storytelling, visual storytelling, acting. Throughout your experiences, have you gained some insights, if you could share, people who would want to get into filmmaking or storytelling, theater, acting? Is there any advice that you would offer to those people?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this is a double-edged sword, because, you know, I think so much of society today is about there's so much effort put into being heard, and not always as much effort into what you are actually saying. One of the things I'm very excited about in directing my first short film, and I feel like I'm finally at a point where I'm like, no, I do have things to say, and I do have my gift to art that I want to share. And, you know, if you're interested in whether it's acting or directing or being a cinematographer or production designer, I mean, look Look at the sets that they make on Cobra Kai. Look at how many opportunities there are for different kind of artists to, the soundtrack, right? Like, there's so many opportunities. My advice is just to study all of it, to understand just how interconnected it all is. I think if you want to be an artist, you have to surround yourself with art. And you have to, in the same way that a martial artist studies different techniques, because those are different perspectives that help you form your style. And so, talk to the cinematographer, talk to the fight choreographer, talk to the composer, like, watch a movie. If you really like a movie, watch it again, going like, where did they cut here? Why did they do that? Is the camera moving or not? And how does that help tell the story? And that's what's so humbling about being an actor, is that, yes, ultimately, like, the lines are yours to deliver, but depending on how they edit it, depending on what the next moment is, depending on how it's, the music sounds, that could really help propel a moment, or, make it subtler. And, just collaborate, be open to collaboration, because even the greatest artists in film and television, they can't hold the camera and be in front of it and hold the boom. And, you have to really be willing to work with others and trust others. And that's when the stuff really starts to flourish. I think Cobra Kai is such a product of love from so many different people. It is many things, I think there are episodes that are really fun, like action-packed episodes, and then there are episodes where, like, you're grappling with some actually really interesting concepts of, like, toxicity and masculinity, and this it will sneak these really profound messages in, and that, I think, is why I feel so honored to be a part of it. Ultimately, is that it's so much more than the sum of its parts.
Well, Nick Marini, we are so honored to have you here with us to tell us about your experience on Cobra Kai and all of your experiences, and give us such insight into the character of Terry Silver. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here, and we will be watching for your next project, your short film Scrambled, coming up in the future. And hopefully we'll get to see you again real soon. And
well, I was gonna say, I've got a movie coming out soon called Dead. That is a brilliant movie written by Isabel Roland, and that should be. I think there'll be crowdfunding for the post production soon. And I also just wanted to say thank you for being such, not only a fan of Cobra Kai, but of Terry Silver. I was remiss to have not said it, but I have watched many of your videos as part of the research we discussed, and just shout out to you and to all the fans who have made this just a truly remarkable experience to be a part of. And it's like nothing I've ever done before. And I hope that I have been able to return the gift that has been given me.
Well, absolutely, Nick. I'm very honored. I'm glad if you got any insights from those videos. That's wonderful. It's just amazing to be talking about this character after so many years, and wonderful performers like you are breathing just new life into the character, and it keeps going. And so thank you for sharing your time with us, and means a lot to me and everyone. So thank you so much, and we will be looking forward to your new movie and all your future projects. And if people want to follow you, you're on Instagram. Is there a great place where people should follow you?
Yeah, I think Instagram is it's Nick A. Marini. I love all the shout outs I get, and every once in a while there'll be like a deluge of Terry Silver fan art, and it gets me stoked every time, so it's like anytime I get to interact with all the people who make this such a special project, I'm happy to do it.
Well, thank you so much, Nick. And hopefully someday after the end of Cobra Kai and after your new movie comes out, we'll get to chat again and talk about Terry Silver, maybe about a potential Terry Silver series. Thanks so much for joining us today, and can't wait to talk to you next time.
Thank you.